the Bruins lose a heartbreaker in OT 4-3 in Game 2. The series is now tied 1-1. I'm Evan Marinofsky here with Conor Ryan of Boston Sports Journal. And Conor, this was one that, again, heartbreaker for Bruins fans. You're down 3-1, you come back to tie it 3-3, and then you lose 4-3 in OT. What'd you think of it?
Well, at least the Bruins and not the Toronto Maple Leafs. I guess you can spin that as a positive. But, yeah, tough game for the Bruins to end in a manner like that. I mean, you come back in the third period. Your big guns are the ones leading the way with Marchand and Bergeron. You have all the makings of a backbreaker against the Islanders where you go up 2-0 in a series going back to Nassau Coliseum. And to have it end in a sequence like that in overtime where Bruce Cassidy said himself, an ill-advised play by Jeremy Lauzon, to end in a manner like that, it's a tough loss for the Bruins. Not a backbreaker by any means, obviously, because the Bruins still had plenty of chances in this one. But when you look at the way these series and the ebbs and flows of it, to have a chance to go up 2-0 in a series and have it end in a way like that, it's a tough hit for the Bruins.
Yeah, no, that was tough. And again, we can get into Lauzon in a little bit. You mentioned the Leafs, obviously. Yeah, the Bruins are lucky they're not the Leafs. I had a tweet all prepared for if the Bruins had won and then 3-1, it was going to work out great. But obviously maybe I jinxed it by saving it in my drafts. Anyways, yes, Jeremy Lauzon makes that ill-advised play now. He's been on the ice for 7 goals against, and he has the second lowest time on ice. Shout out to Ty Anderson for that stat on Twitter. Is it time to try something different with Jeremy Lauzon?
Well, it's kind of the challenge of looking at the state of this decor, right? Where, all right, who's the next best option? Is it putting in a guy like Tinordi, who I think in spurts Jared Tinordi has value to this team. We saw in that Washington series, but I think he's also one of those guys where, you put him in for one game, might help, but you put him in for an extended stretch in the series, then he starts getting exposed a little bit. And I think when you go up against a team like Washington, that's obviously a big physical team, his skills are kind of more evident out there. The Islanders can knock you around too, but they're a little bit more of a skilled trap. You need guys active on the blue line to kind of get past those bodies they put out there in the neutral zone. I don't really know if Tenorti's the guy that answers the call there. It's more of an issue with the Bruins' depth as a whole of who do you really slot in there that's going to fix this issue, because obviously I think if Kevin Miller was healthy, he would be a guy that you'd slot back in there, but we don't really have a timetable yet on when he's going to be back. So it's a tough break for the Bruins in terms of what you do now, because it's not like there's a set-in-stone solution or a guy like, a Clifton that is waiting in the wings to roll in there. So we'll see what the Bruins do. Obviously, Brad Marchand said after the game that, he kind of took the approach of, as he said, shit happens, right? I think, that, yes. As he said, so it's a learning moment for him. Obviously, you'd like these learning moments to be in a regular season game in April, not in the middle of the playoffs. But so we'll see what the Bruins do, because, again, it's not like there's a key guy on the bench ready to roll in there. So
you mentioned it. There's no one to replace him with. I mean, John Moore's hurt. I know people don't want me to say that, but it is true. Kevin Miller's hurt. You have these issues with the depth. The other thing and this is interesting, and a lot of people are saying this now, the play the kids narrative. You want to play the kids. And in that play, in that situation, a lot of people are saying, Chara would have just dumped it in deep, or if Lauzon didn't have to be on the ice. Now, I will give Lauzon a little defense. He had a big block in early overtime to basically stop an open net goal. So there is that. But is this an issue where playing the kids kind of came back to bite them?
Yeah, I think, even going into the season, Don Sweeney mentioned that there was going to be those bumps in the road, the developmental challenges that come with rolling out a couple of younger guys. I mean, you look at Jacob Zaboral, who's hurt and wouldn't be able to slot in now, but he's a guy that, let's say he was available, would Jacob Zaboral be a guy that we're ready to roll out in there? Like, he's had plenty of bumps in the road as well with his game. So, yeah, it's definitely a situation where you look at just the way this decor is set up, and these are the punches you kind of have to roll with when you move on from Zdeno Chara and Torrey Krug, and it's just unfortunate, as I said, that it comes in a playoff game that those kind of get exposed out there, because that's a situation where, Cassidy said not just ill-advised, but kind of just a fundamental, like, you have to look, there was no guy there even to receive that pass, right? It's one of those things where the Bruins, obviously they try to add to the decor at the deadline with a guy like Riley, who I think also had a bit of a frustrating night, more or less just not shooting the puck. But
fans gave into that.
Of course. But, yeah, you look at just the way that this decor is structured, and as expected, it's going to be McAvoy and Grzelcyk and those guys kind of leading the charge most nights. But yeah, to have it happen in a playoff game like that's a tough break.
With Tuukka Rask, it's funny. Cassidy came out after and said, tracking pucks was an issue for him tonight. I didn't notice that as much. I didn't think Rask was that bad because, again, you had these weird deflections and weird bounces going in. The first one goes off Lauzon's skate. Obviously, people are not happy with Lauzon are going to be even more mad at that. But it didn't feel like there were any that were outrageously bad. And I don't know if calling him out like that was... I didn't see the merit for it.
I think it's one of those things that Bruce Cassidy's done plenty of times before, where even I think there's... Bruce Cassidy's very candid, I think, with the media and uses, I think he's smart with using the media as an outlet to kind of get that criticism out and have guys take notice. We've seen it this year with younger players, with guys like DeBrusk, Anders Bjork before he got traded. So I think maybe for Rask, it's even a situation. There's a few times this year where I think Rask has had a game that, we wouldn't say he was great, but did enough for them to win. And, Cassidy would talk about how he, could have had a save there. And you look back on it like, oh, well, didn't think that was, going to be on the list of, issues that Cassidy was going to have. But maybe it's a situation where if you're trying to get a rise out of Rask, or, we've seen it, whether it be when Khudobin was here, when Halak was here the last few years, or now with Swayman, how Rask seems to, get up and respond to either challenges or criticism or all that. So that could be just a way to kind of get a rise out of Rask and see if he can kind of improve a little bit. There was, the Palmieri goal was a bit of a tough play there, but as you said, there was also quite a few deflections and what have you there. But I think for Cassie, it's more or less a way to, have him take notice and hopefully tie up a few things.
Yeah, and also another thing that, before we leave, the crowd. The crowd was now we're doing crowd analysis because it's, we're back. And it was good. It was great at the beginning, but then it settled down a bit. Obviously the Bruins didn't give them a lot to cheer about in the second period. But that third period, oh my. Just the place exploded after the Marchand goal on the power play. And if they had ever scored in overtime to win it, or if they'd ever scored in regulation and gone ahead, it would have been crazy. It would have been crazy. So another crazy night at the Garden. Different result. 4-3 overtime loss. Before we go, by the way, I feel like we should kind of address the elephant in the room. How bad is the lighting?
Yeah, it's not ideal. I think we're maybe a bit spoiled with the Zoom calls that we're usually with. It just feels awkward. I think that we're actually. Whoa. Yeah, exactly.
Whoa.
So we roll the punches though. It's the postseason. Nothing's perfect, but survive in advance. You roll with the punches and go forward. So.
It's like fighting through an injury right now. We're fighting through the injury. Maybe we'll make some adjustments before Game 5.
We are day to day with the lighting. So
day to day with lighting. Game 2, Evan Marinofsky. That's Conor Ryan. Keep it here, Bruins Ringside, for all your coverage, and keep it at Boston Sports Journal as well for all your coverage over there.